Everyone laughed that night. Everyone except me. I can still hear it, that sound. The clinking of champagne glasses, the burst of laughter that rolled through the reception hall like thunder. 250 people, all dressed in their finest, all celebrating my daughter's happiness. And there I sat, at table 7, near the back, my hands wrapped around a glass of water that suddenly felt too heavy to hold. Clara stood at the microphone in her $1,000 wedding dress, the one I'd secretly helped pay for, though she'll never know that. The lights caught the beading on her bodice, made her look like she was glowing. My baby girl. My only child. The person I'd given everything to, sacrificed everything for. And she raised her glass high, that beautiful smile on her face, and she said it. I can finally leave behind this last name that always made me feel small. The room erupted. Laughter. Applause. Her new in-laws, those wealthy, polished people from Greenwich, they nodded like she'd said something profound. Like she'd just freed herself from chains. The groom's father actually clapped her on the shoulder. I watched his wife lean over and whisper something that made them both smile. And me? I sat there feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. Bennett. The name that made her feel small. Bennett, the name my husband wore when he died at 43, working a double shift at the factory because we needed money for Clara's braces. The name I kept even when people suggested I might find it easier to move on if I changed it. The name I signed on every permission slip, every report card, every college application. The name I whispered into the dark on those nights when I didn't know how I'd make rent, when I'd sit at my sewing machine until 3 in the morning, my fingers bleeding from needle pricks, making alterations for people who never even looked me in the eye. Small. She felt small. I wanted to stand up. God, how I wanted to stand up and scream. To ask her if she knew, if she had any idea, what that name had cost to keep. To tell everyone in that room what the Bennett name really meant. But I didn't. Because that's not who I am. That's not who my husband taught me to be. So I sat there, my silver hairpin, the one he gave me on our 10th anniversary, pressing into my scalp, and I whispered to myself what I've whispered 1,000 times before, patience, Evelyn. Patience builds stronger things than pride. But patience tastes like ash when your daughter just told 250 people that everything you are made her feel small. I need to go back. You need to understand who I am, who we were, before I tell you what happened next. Because this isn't just a story about a wedding toast. This is a story about a name, yes, but more than that, it's about the women who carried it, who built it brick by brick out of nothing but dignity and determination. My name is Evelyn Bennett. I'm 68 years old now, and I've been a widow for 30 years. 30 years of waking up alone, of making decisions alone, of carrying the weight of everything alone. But I wasn't always alone. Once, I was Evelyn and Jonathan. We were young and stupid and so in love it hurt. Jonathan Bennett, my Jonathan, was a good man. Not a rich man, not a powerful man, but good. The kind of good that matters when you're building a life. We had Clara when I was 24. She was premature, tiny, barely 5 pounds, and the hospital bills almost buried us before we'd even begun. But Jonathan, he picked up extra shifts. I took in sewing. We figured it out because that's what you do. That's what the Bennett name meant to us, you figure it out, you work for it, you never quit. Then Jonathan died. Just like that. A heart attack on the factory floor. 43 years old. Clara was only 2. I remember holding her at the funeral, this tiny thing in a black dress I'd made from one of my old skirts, and thinking, how do I do this alone? But I did it. God help me, I did it. I worked at Sullivan's tailoring 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Mrs. Sullivan let me bring Clara to the shop when she was little. My daughter grew up breathing in the smell of fabric and steam, doing her homework in the back room while I hemmed wedding dresses for other people's daughters. I took in extra work at night, alterations, mending, anything. There were months when I ate nothing but rice and beans so Clara could have meat. Months when I wore the same 3 dresses over and over because every penny went to her school supplies, her field trips, her future. I never complained. Never told her how hard it was. I wanted her to feel safe, to feel like she could be anything, do anything. I wanted her to reach for things I'd never even dreamed of. And she did. She was smart, my Clara. Top of her class. Got into a good college, not the elite school she wanted, but good enough. I worked triple shifts to help pay for it, even with the scholarships. And I was proud. So proud I thought my heart would burst. This little girl who used to fall asleep in the fabric piles at Sullivan's was going to have opportunities one never had. She was going to be someone. The Bennett name was going to mean something more because of her. I kept one thing through all of it, my mother's family Bible. It's old, leather-worn, with the Bennett name engraved on the cover. Inside, there's a family tree going back 4 generations. All women who'd carried this name with pride. My great-grandmother, who worked as a laundress and saved enough to buy her own house. My grandmother, who raised 6 children alone during the Depression. My mother, who cleaned offices at night so her kids could stay in school. Strong women. Women who didn't have much, but who had dignity. Who had pride in their work, in their word, in their name. I thought Clara understood that. I thought I'd taught her that. I thought when I told her stories about her father, about her grandmothers, about what it meant to work hard and hold your head high, I thought she was listening. But at some point, I don't know when something changed. She got that job in New York, at that marketing firm. Started dating Andrew, the groom. He came from money. Real money. The kind where you summer in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen. Where you don't buy things, you acquire them. His parents lived in a house with actual columns out front, the kind you see in movies about old American wealth. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, Clara started pulling away. The phone calls got shorter. The visits got rarer. When she did come home, she'd look around my small apartment, the same one she grew up in, with this expression I couldn't quite read. Pity? Embarrassment? I don't know. She stopped talking about her father. Stopped asking about the family. When Andrew came to meet me, just once, before the wedding, he shook my hand like I was the help. His eyes skated over my worn furniture, my old photographs, the sewing machine still set up in the corner because I still take in work, even now. Not because I need the money as much anymore, but because it's who I am. It's what I know. Clara barely looked at me that day. She kept apologizing, for the neighborhood, for the apartment, for me. Sorry, it's a bit cramped. Sorry, Mom hasn't updated things in a while. Sorry. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her. To say, this cramped apartment is where I raised you. This is where I sat up with you when you had nightmares. Where I helped you with your homework. Where I made you Halloween costumes and birthday cakes and Christmas mornings out of nothing but love and determination. But I didn't. Because I told myself she was nervous, that she wanted Andrew to like her family, that it was just wedding stress. I told myself a lot of things that weren't true. The wedding planning was a nightmare. His parents took over everything. The venue, the caterer, the flowers, the guest list. I was informed of decisions, not included in them. When I offered to help with anything, to make something, to contribute, Clara laughed. Actually laughed. Oh Mom, no. This isn't really it's being handled professionally. Professionally. As if my hands, these hands that made her every piece of clothing until she was 12, weren't professional enough. I swallowed it. All of it. Because I hoped, that once the wedding was over, once the stress was done, I'd get my daughter back. That we'd be okay again. Then came that night. That toast. After the laughter died down, after Clara sat back down next to her new husband who kissed her cheek like she'd done something wonderful, I excused myself. I told the people at my table, distant cousins I barely knew, because I wasn't allowed to invite many guests, that I needed some air. I walked out to the terrace. It was May, warm, with that soft evening light that makes everything look beautiful. The venue was at the Grand Harbor Hotel, the same place where Jonathan and I had our reception. We'd rented the smallest room they had, and even that had stretched our budget to breaking. Now Clara had the grand ballroom. Everything I'd wanted for her and couldn't give her. And she was ashamed. Of me. Of us. Of the name her father died carrying. I stood there on that terrace, looking out at the harbor, and I felt something inside me crack. Not break, I've been broken before, and this wasn't that. This was different. This was colder. Harder. I took off my silver hairpin, Jonathan's hairpin, and held it in my palm. What would you do? I whispered to the wind, to him, to God, to anyone who might be listening. What would you tell me to do? But I knew. I knew what Jonathan would say. He'd say that you can't force people to understand what they're not ready to see. That dignity isn't about defending yourself, it's about living in a way that needs no defense. That revenge is heavy, and we were never people who carried heavy things when we could set them down and walk away. So that's what I decided to do. Not revenge. Not retaliation. Just distance. Understanding. Clarity. I went back inside, finished the reception with a smile plastered on my face, hugged my daughter goodbye, and went home to my small apartment. And there, finally alone, I let myself cry. I cried for Jonathan, who never got to see his daughter grow up. I cried for the little girl who used to hold my hand so tight, like she was afraid I'd disappear. I cried for the woman I'd become, strong, yes, but so tired. So tired of being strong. Then I dried my eyes, opened Jonathan's journal, the one I've kept since he died, where I write him letters sometimes when things are hard, and I wrote, "Don't explain. Don't justify. Just remember." I took the wedding invitation out of my purse. It was cream-colored, expensive, with Clara's name printed in gold. Clara Bennett requests the honor of your presence. The last time that name would be printed with Bennett attached. I placed it inside the family Bible, next to the family tree, next to all those other strong women who'd carried our name. And I made a decision. I wouldn't chase her. I wouldn't beg for her respect or her understanding. I would just live my life, carry my name with the same dignity my mother and grandmother had carried it, and hope, pray, that someday, somehow, Clara would understand what she'd thrown away. I didn't expect what happened next. Nobody could have. 6 weeks after the wedding, I received a letter. Heavy cream paper, expensive. A law firm in Boston, Whitmore, Sterling and Associates. I almost threw it away, thinking it was junk mail. But something made me open it. "Dear Mrs. Bennett," it began. "We are writing to inform you of the passing of Harold Bennett, second cousin to your late father." Harold Bennett. I had to think hard to even place the name. My father had been estranged from most of his family, some old grudge I never fully understood. Harold was someone I'd met maybe twice in my life, at funerals. A businessman, I thought. Textiles or manufacturing. I'd sent him a Christmas card once or twice after Jonathan died, more out of obligation than anything else. I kept reading, my hand starting to shake. As the sole surviving heir meeting the criteria established in his will, you are entitled to the full estate, including Mr. Bennett's textile manufacturing business, properties, and liquid assets, with a total estimated value exceeding $20 million. $20 million. I read it again. And again. The words wouldn't make sense. This had to be a mistake. A scam. Something. There was more. Per the explicit instructions in Mr. Bennett's will, inheritance is contingent upon the heir maintaining and honoring the Bennett family name. Any potential heir who has legally or publicly renounced the Bennett name is ineligible. And suddenly, I was laughing. Sitting alone in my apartment, holding this letter, laughing so hard tears ran down my face. Because the universe has a sense of humor, doesn't it? The name my daughter was so eager to shed, the name that made her feel small, was worth $20 million. The name she mocked in front of 250 people was the key to a fortune I never knew existed. The irony wasn't lost on me. In fact, it hit me so hard I had to sit down before I fell down. I called the law firm the next morning. Spent 2 hours on the phone with a lawyer who confirmed everything. It was real. All of it. Harold Bennett had built a textile empire, never married, never had children. He'd watched from a distance as his extended family dispersed, changed their names, forgot their roots. And he'd decided that his legacy would only go to someone who still carried the Bennett name with pride. He was very specific, the lawyer told me. He researched extensively. He knew about your husband's death, about your work as a seamstress, about how you'd raised your daughter alone. He was impressed, Mrs. Bennett. He said you were the only one left who understood what the name meant. I thought about Harold, this man I barely knew, watching my life from afar. Seeing me struggle. Seeing me work. Seeing me hold on to my husband's name when it would have been easier to let it go. And deciding that I, of all people, deserved this. The inheritance process took months. Lawyers, paperwork, assessments. I didn't tell Clara. Didn't tell anyone. I kept going to work at Sullivan's, kept taking in alterations, kept living my quiet life while lawyers transferred millions of dollars into accounts I'd never dreamed of having. And I thought long and hard about what to do with this money, this gift, this vindication. I could have confronted Clara. Could have called her up and said, "Remember that name you mocked? That name that made you feel small? It's worth $20 million, and you just forfeited your inheritance by being ashamed of it." I could have watched her realize what she'd lost. I could have had that moment. But that's not who I am. That's not what the Bennett name means. Instead, I made a plan. A real plan. Not for revenge, but for meaning. For legacy. For all the women like me who'd been made to feel small by a world that measures worth in dollar signs instead of dignity. I founded the Bennett Foundation. Used $10 million of the inheritance to set it up properly, with endowments and trustees and everything needed to make it last. The mission, to provide scholarships and housing grants to women working manual or service jobs. Women trying to better themselves, to build something, to give their children more than they had. Women like me. Women whose names might not mean anything to anyone else, but who carry them with pride anyway. I stayed anonymous. The foundation was public, but I worked through lawyers and trustees. Nobody knew that the woman funding it was a 68-year-old widow who still worked at a tailoring shop because she couldn't imagine not working. Meanwhile, life went on. Clara called occasionally, less than before, but occasionally. She and Andrew had moved to a bigger apartment in Manhattan. She was climbing the corporate ladder at her firm. Everything sounded perfect in her voice, bright and shiny and new. But I knew better. I've always been able to hear what Clara doesn't say. And what she wasn't saying was that things were hard. Andrew's business venture, some tech startup his father had funded, was struggling. That their lifestyle was expensive. That the money from his parents came with strings attached. Still, I didn't say anything. I'd send birthday cards, anniversary cards. I'd answer when she called. But I didn't chase her. Didn't beg for visits. I'd learned my lesson about demanding space in her life. Then, about a year after the wedding, she called asking for help. It was late, almost midnight. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. Mom? We need to talk about something. Andrew's business is having some cash flow problems, and his parents are being difficult about releasing more funds until the next quarter, and we're in a bit of a bind with the apartment lease and... She wanted money. My daughter, who'd been too embarrassed to let me contribute more than a token amount to her wedding, was calling to ask for money. Part of me, the hurt part, the angry part, wanted to laugh. Wanted to say, really? You want help from the woman whose name made you feel small? But I didn't. Because I'm not cruel. I'm not petty. I'm just tired. Sweetheart, I said quietly, sometimes you have to live without what you're ashamed of to understand its worth. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mom, what does that mean? It means I can't help you right now, Clara. Not with money. But I love you. I always will. She tried to argue, to explain, to make me understand how desperate things were. But I held firm. Not because I wanted her to suffer, God, no. But because giving her money wouldn't fix what was broken between us. It would just paper over it. When we hung up, I cried again. For her. For us. For everything we'd lost that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with respect. But I wasn't done. The Bennett Foundation was my legacy, yes, but it needed a face. It needed a moment. It needed to mean something visible, something public, something that would show the world what I'd been trying to show Clara all along. So I planned an event. A gala dinner. At the Grand Harbor Hotel, yes, the same hotel where Clara had her wedding. I worked with the foundation's event coordinator, a sharp young woman named Lisa who didn't know she was working directly with the foundation's benefactor. We planned every detail. The venue, the menu, the program. And the guest list. I was very particular about the guest list. Local business leaders. Nonprofit directors. Politicians. And one more addition, we sent invitations to several PR and marketing firms in New York, offering them tables in exchange for promoting the foundation. Clara's firm was one of them. I knew she'd come. Her firm was always looking for good publicity, for charity connections. And I knew Clara well enough to know she'd volunteer to attend. She'd see it as networking, as building her career. She had no idea the Bennett Foundation was mine. Why would she? She'd never even asked about my life since the wedding. Never wondered how I was doing, whether I was okay, whether I needed anything. The night of the gala arrived. I'd bought a dress, the first expensive dress I'd ever owned. Deep blue, elegant, simple. I had my hair done professionally for the first time in years. I put on Jonathan's silver hairpin, and I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I looked like someone who mattered. Like someone who'd earned her place in the world. I arrived early, before the guests. Walked through the same ballroom where Clara had gotten married, where she'd stood at that microphone and told everyone our name made her feel small. The event coordinator had done a beautiful job. The foundation's logo, a simple, elegant B4 Bennett, was everywhere. The programs on each table told the story of the foundation's mission. There were photos of the women we'd helped, their stories, their dreams. It was perfect. It was everything I'd envisioned. Then the guests started arriving. I watched from behind the scenes, near the kitchen entrance, as the room filled with people. Important people. People who'd never given me a second glance when I was just Evelyn Bennett, the seamstress. But who were here tonight to celebrate the Bennett Foundation, to toast the Bennett name, to honor what it represented. And then I saw her. Clara. Walking in with Andrew, wearing a designer dress I couldn't even imagine the cost of. She looked beautiful, she always looks beautiful. But there was something tight around her eyes, something tired. The stress she wasn't telling me about, written on her face for anyone who knew how to look. She didn't see me. Why would she? She was too busy networking, shaking hands, smiling that professional smile she'd perfected. I watched her pick up a program, glance at it, set it down. She wasn't really interested in the foundation, in its mission. This was just work for her. Just another event. My heart ached. Because once upon a time, this would have been exactly the kind of thing Clara would have cared about. Young Clara, the one who used to help me deliver finished alterations to customers, who insisted on giving her allowance money to homeless people we passed on the street, who wrote essays about economic inequality in high school. That Clara would have cared about the Bennett Foundation. But Clara was gone. Or buried. Or just lost. The lights dimmed for the program to begin. The foundation's executive director, a woman I'd hired specifically because she was brilliant and passionate and understood what we were trying to do, stepped up to the microphone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight to celebrate the first anniversary of the Bennett Foundation. Over the past year, we've been able to provide scholarships to 43 women, housing assistance to 31 families, and job training programs to over 100 participants. None of this would have been possible without the vision and generosity of our founder. I saw Clara clapping politely, still not really paying attention. She was whispering something to Andrew, who looked bored. Our founder specifically requested to remain anonymous for our first year of operation. But tonight, she's agreed to step forward and share with you the inspiration behind this foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Evelyn Bennett. The room erupted in applause. I took a deep breath, straightened Jonathan's hairpin in my hair, and walked out onto that stage. I saw the exact moment Clara recognized me. Her hand stopped mid-clap. Her mouth fell open. The glass of wine she'd been holding tilted dangerously before Andrew grabbed it from her. She looked like she'd been struck by lightning, frozen, shocked, unable to process what she was seeing. I walked to the microphone, looked out at the crowd of 250 people, the same number who'd been at her wedding, and I smiled. Good evening. My name is Evelyn Bennett. Most of you don't know me. I've spent my life as a seamstress, a tailor, a woman who works with her hands. I'm not famous. I'm not important, not in the way the world usually measures importance. But I am proud. Proud of the work I've done, the life I've lived, and most especially, proud of the name I carry. My eyes found Clara in the crowd. She was crying, tears streaming down her face, her hand over her mouth. The Bennett name has been carried by generations of strong women. Women who worked hard, who sacrificed, who built lives of dignity even when the world told them they didn't matter. My great-grandmother was a laundress who saved enough money to buy her own house. My grandmother raised 6 children alone during the Depression. My mother cleaned office buildings at night so her children could stay in school. And my husband, my late husband, Jonathan Bennett, he died at 43, working double shifts so we could give our daughter every opportunity we never had. I had to pause, to breathe, to steady my voice. This foundation exists because I inherited something unexpected. A fortune built by a distant relative who believed that the Bennett name meant something. That it represented hard work, dignity, and pride. He left his entire estate to the last person in our extended family who still carried the Bennett name with honor. And he chose me, not because I was successful by the world's standards, but because I never stopped being proud of who I was and where I came from. The room was completely silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. Some people change their names to sound prouder, to feel bigger, to escape what they perceive as smallness. But I've learned that names don't make us small or big. Our actions do. Our choices do. How we treat people, how we honor where we came from, how we use what we've been given, that's what gives a name meaning. I looked directly at Clara now, letting her see everything I'd been holding back for a year. The Bennett Foundation exists to help women who've been told they're not enough. Women who work jobs the world looks down on. Women who are raising children alone, who are fighting every day to build better lives. Women who might feel small in a world that worships size and status and wealth. I want them to know that their work matters. Their dignity matters. Their names, whatever those names are, matter. The applause started slowly, then built. People stood. The ovation went on and on. But I barely heard it because I was watching my daughter. Clara was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. Andrew had his arm around her, looking confused and uncomfortable. She was trying to stand, trying to make her way toward the stage, but people kept stopping her, blocking her path with their standing ovation. I finished my speech, thanked everyone for coming, encouraged them to continue supporting the foundation's work. Then I stepped off the stage and walked toward the back, toward the exit, toward escape. But Clara found me. Of course she did. Mom. She caught me in the hallway outside the ballroom, grabbed my arm. Her face was destroyed, makeup running, eyes swollen, nose red. Mom, please. Please, I need to talk to you. I stopped. I turned to face her. I looked at this woman who was my daughter, who I loved more than life itself, who had broken my heart so completely I wasn't sure it would ever fully heal. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. About everything. About the name, about you, about what matters. I was an idiot and I was ashamed of the wrong things and Clara. I said her name quietly, but it stopped her mid-sentence. I know you're sorry. I can see that. But you need to understand something. When you stood up at your wedding and told 250 people that the Bennett name made you feel small, you weren't just insulting a name. You were erasing your father. You were dismissing your grandmothers. You were telling the world that everything I sacrificed, everything I worked for, everything I was, it wasn't enough. That I wasn't enough. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I hate myself for it. I was trying so hard to fit into Andrew's world, to be someone impressive, to be worthy of his family. And I forgot that I came from something real, something solid, something that actually matters. His family. I couldn't help the bitter laugh. And how is that working out for you? Andrew's business failing? His parents holding money over your heads? Is that impressive world still shining so bright? She flinched like I'd slapped her. No. It's falling apart. Everything is falling apart. And I realized, too late, I know, that the only real thing I ever had was you. Was us. Was where I came from. I wanted to hug her. God, I wanted to pull her into my arms and tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that we'd be fine. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because forgiveness without understanding is hollow. Clara, I didn't do this to hurt you. I didn't reveal myself tonight to embarrass you or get revenge. I did this because it needed to be done. Because there are women out there who need to know that their worth isn't measured by their last names or their zip codes or their bank accounts. Because the Bennett name means something, and I needed to show the world what it means. I know, she whispered. I see that now. And I'm proud. So proud of you. So proud to be your daughter. So proud to have come from you, even though I don't deserve to say that after what I did. We stood there in that hallway, mother and daughter, separated by a year of hurt and a lifetime of misunderstanding. I can't promise you that everything is fixed between us, I told her honestly. I can't promise that this doesn't still hurt, that I've forgiven and forgotten. But I can promise you that I still love you. I never stopped loving you. I just needed you to see what you were throwing away. I see it, she said, her voice breaking. I see it so clearly now, and I'm ashamed of how blind I was. Names don't need defending, Clara. Just people who live them well. You want the Bennett name to mean something? Then live in a way that honors it. Not by keeping it legally, you're married now, you've made your choice, but by remembering where you came from. By respecting it. By passing those values on if you ever have children. That's how you honor a name. Not by carrying it, but by carrying what it represents. She nodded, wiping at her face with the back of her hand. Can we have coffee sometime? Can we talk? Really talk? Maybe, I said. In time. But Clara, you need to understand, I'm not the same woman I was a year ago. I'm not just your mother anymore. I'm the founder of a foundation. I have responsibilities, a purpose beyond just raising you. I have my own life now, my own identity. And I need you to respect that. I do. I will. I promise. I reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way I used to when she was little. I hope so, sweetheart. I really do. Then I walked away. Left her standing in that hallway. Because this wasn't a movie where everything gets resolved in one emotional conversation. This was real life, where healing takes time and forgiveness is earned, not given. The next few months were complicated. Clara did reach out, emails, phone calls, texts. She was persistent but respectful, never demanding, always asking if I had time, if I was willing. We had coffee twice. Lunch once. Conversations that were awkward and painful and necessary. She told me about her marriage troubles. About how Andrew's family had turned cold when the business failed. About how she'd realized that the people she'd been trying to impress didn't actually care about her at all. About how she'd been chasing a version of success that was hollow and meaningless. I listened. I didn't lecture, didn't say, "I told you so," even though I wanted to. I just listened. And slowly, very slowly, we started to rebuild something. Not what we'd had before, that was gone, broken beyond repair. But something new. Something more honest. A relationship between two adults who were learning to see each other clearly for the first time. The Bennett Foundation grew. We helped more women every month. I started doing occasional speaking events, telling my story, and encouraging others. I even did a few interviews, though I kept them focused on the foundation's work rather than the family drama. Clara started volunteering with the foundation. At first, I thought it was just guilt, just her trying to make amends. But as weeks turned to months, I realized she genuinely cared. She'd found something that mattered, something real. She was good at it too, her marketing skills actually helped us reach more women who needed our services. One day, about 6 months after the gala, we were at the foundation office together, sorting through grant applications. Clara looked up at me and said, "Mom? Thank you." For what? For not giving up on me. Even when I gave you every reason to. I set down the application I was reading and looked at her, really looked at her. She looked different now. Older, yes, but also more solid somehow. More real. The glossy, polished veneer was gone, and underneath was someone I recognized. Someone who reminded me of the little girl who used to help me at the tailoring shop. I never gave up on you, Clara. I just had to let you find your own way back. She nodded, tears in her eyes again. I found it. Finally. I found my way back to understanding what matters. And it's not the name, is it? It was never about the name. No, I agreed. It's about what the name represents. Dignity. Hard work. Pride in who you are and where you come from. You can be Clara, whatever your legal name is now, and still carry those values. That's what I needed you to understand. Last week, I did something I'd been planning for a while. I drove out to Riverside Cemetery, to Jonathan's grave. I do this sometimes, when I need to think, when I need to feel close to him. I brought fresh flowers, daisies, his favorite, and I sat on the bench next to his headstone. "Hey, love," I said quietly, running my fingers over the letters carved in granite, "Jonathan James Bennett. I have news. Clara's coming around. She's not the same girl she was, but maybe that's okay. Maybe she needed to break before she could rebuild into something stronger. I don't know. But she's trying. Really trying." The wind rustled through the trees overhead. Spring was coming again. Another year, another season, another cycle of growth and renewal. The foundation is doing well. Really well. We're helping so many women, Jonathan. Women like your mother, like my mother, like me. Women who work hard and deserve to be seen, to be valued. I wish you could see it. I wish you could be here to watch Clara volunteering, to see her eyes light up when we approve a grant that's going to change someone's life. I paused, swallowed hard against the lump in my throat. Our name is safe now. Not because it's worth money, though it is, more than we ever dreamed. But because it means something again. Because Clara finally understands what you and I always knew, that worth isn't measured in dollars or status or impressive addresses. It's measured in how you treat people, how you live your values, how you honor those who came before you. I touched the headstone, cold and solid under my palm. She asked me last week if she could bring her children here someday. When she has them. To tell them about their grandfather. To tell them about the Bennett name and what it really means. And Jonathan, I cried. Because that's all I ever wanted. Not for her to keep the name legally, that ship sailed. But for her to carry the legacy. To pass it on. To make sure our grandchildren know where they came from. A tear slid down my cheek, and I didn't bother wiping it away. I forgive her. I haven't told her that yet, not completely, but I do. Because holding on to anger is exhausting, and life is too short. We both know that better than most people. You were 43. We thought we had decades left. And then you were gone, and I've spent 30 years wishing I could have one more day, one more hour, one more conversation. The cemetery was quiet except for birdsong and the distant sound of traffic. Peaceful. Jonathan always liked peace. I'm not the same woman you married, love. I'm harder now. Stronger, yes, but also harder. What Clara did, it changed something in me. Made me realize that I'd spent so much of my life making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. I worked in the background, never asked for credit, never demanded recognition. I thought that was dignity. But maybe it was just fear. Fear of being seen, of taking up space, of claiming my own worth. I stood up, brushed off my coat, arranged the daisies more carefully in the vase. The foundation changed that. Standing on that stage, telling my story, seeing people respond to it, I realized I have a voice. That my experience matters. That the life I've lived, the struggles I've faced, the choices I've made, they're worth talking about. They can help other people. And I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to apologize for existing, for taking up space, for having opinions and needs and boundaries. I kissed my fingers and pressed them to his name on the stone. So yes, our name is safe. In Clara's heart, where it matters. In the foundation, where it's helping people. And in me, where it's always been. I'm Evelyn Bennett, and I'm proud of that. Finally, completely, unapologetically proud. I walked back to my car, feeling lighter somehow. Like I'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. The truth is, this story doesn't have a neat, tidy ending. life rarely does. Clara and I are still working on our relationship. Some days are good, some days are hard. She's in therapy now, working through her own issues about worth and identity and what it means to come from humble beginnings in a world that worships wealth. Her marriage to Andrew is rocky. They're trying to make it work, but I don't know if they will. Part of me hopes they don't, honestly. Not because I wish her unhappiness, but because I've seen how that family treats people they consider beneath them. How they smile to your face and mock you behind your back. Clara deserves better than that, even if she doesn't fully realize it yet. But that's her journey to make, her lessons to learn. I can't protect her from everything, and I shouldn't try. She's 33 years old. She needs to figure out her own life, make her own mistakes, find her own path to happiness and fulfillment. What I can do is continue building the Bennett Foundation into something that outlasts me. That's my legacy now. Not Clara, not grandchildren I may or may not have someday, but this concrete, tangible thing that helps real people in real ways. We've expanded our programs. Added job training in trades, plumbing, electrical work, carpentry. Skills that pay well and can't be outsourced. Skills that give women independence and security. We partner with local unions, with vocational schools, with employers who are willing to give our graduates a chance. Last month, I met a woman named Rosa. She's 45, was working as a hotel housekeeper, raising 3 kids on her own. She came to us desperate, her oldest was about to age out of foster care support, her rent was going up, she was drowning. We got her into our electrician training program. Paid for her childcare while she attended classes. Helped her with her rent so she wouldn't lose her apartment. She graduated 2 weeks ago. Already has a job lined up that pays 3 times what she was making at the hotel. She came to the office to thank me, and she was crying. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "you saved my life. You saved my family." And I looked at this strong, determined woman, this fighter who'd been knocked down by life but refused to stay down, and I said, "No, Rosa. You saved your own life. I just gave you the tools." That's what the foundation does. We don't save people, we give them tools. Resources. Opportunities. A chance to save themselves. Because that's what dignity is really about. Not rescuing people or making them dependent, but empowering them to build their own futures. Clara was there that day. She'd helped coordinate Rosa's placement in the training program. And I saw her watching this interaction, tears in her own eyes, and I knew she was finally getting it. Finally understanding what I'd been trying to teach her all along. After Rosa left, Clara turned to me and said, "This is what you've been doing all along, isn't it? With me. Giving me tools, even when I didn't appreciate them. Even when I thought I was too good for them." I just hugged her. Because sometimes words aren't necessary. Sometimes understanding is enough. But I'd be lying if I said the hurt is completely gone. There are still moments when I remember that wedding toast, when I hear her voice saying the last name that always made me feel small, and I feel that knife twist in my chest all over again. There are still nights when I lie awake wondering where I went wrong, what I could have done differently, how I failed to instill in her the values I thought I was teaching. The truth, the hard, ugly truth I don't like to admit, is that I'm angry. Still. Underneath the forgiveness, underneath the rebuilding, there's a core of anger that hasn't dissipated. Anger that my daughter was embarrassed by me. Anger that she valued appearances over substance. Anger that she had to lose everything before she could appreciate what she had. And there's pain. God, so much pain. The pain of sitting in that wedding reception feeling invisible and worthless. The pain of realizing that the child you sacrificed everything for sees that sacrifice as something shameful. The pain of knowing that if Harold Bennett hadn't left me that inheritance, Clara might never have understood the value of what she threw away. What does that say about us? About her? That it took $20 million to make her see her own mother's worth? I try not to think about that too much. Try not to let that poison the new relationship we're building. But it's there, lurking underneath every coffee date, every volunteering session, every "I love you, Mom," she says now. Is it real? Or is it guilt? Is she here because she genuinely values me now, or because she feels obligated? Because she's ashamed of what she did and is trying to make amends? I don't know. And maybe I'll never know. Maybe that's something I have to live with, the uncertainty, the doubt, the fear that if I lost everything tomorrow, she'd disappear again. But I'm trying. We're both trying. And maybe that's enough. Maybe love isn't about perfect trust or absolute certainty. Maybe it's about showing up anyway, even when it's hard, even when you're not sure, even when old wounds haven't fully healed. I think about my mother sometimes, and my grandmother, and all those Bennett women who came before me. They faced their own heartbreaks, their own disappointments, their own moments of wondering if they'd done enough, been enough, mattered enough. And they kept going. They kept working, kept loving, kept carrying their names with dignity even when the world told them those names didn't matter. That's what I'm doing now. Keeping going. The foundation needs me. The women we serve need me. And yes, Clara needs me too, even if that need looks different than it used to. I went back to work at Sullivan's Tailoring, by the way. Even with millions in the bank, even with the foundation to run, I still go in twice a week to do alterations. Mrs. Sullivan is 90 now, mostly retired, but she keeps the shop open because she loves it. And I love it too. The rhythm of it, the meditation of it, the simple satisfaction of taking something broken or ill-fitting and making it right again. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do with Clara. Take something broken and make it right. Stitch us back together with careful, patient work. It's slow. It's painstaking. And I don't know if it will hold. But I'm trying because that's what you do for people you love. You try. Last week, Clara asked if she could have the family Bible. The one with the Bennett name engraved on the cover, with the family tree inside, with her wedding invitation pressed between the pages. I want to start reading it again, she said. Want to understand where I came from. Want to add to it someday, if I have children. Want them to know their great-great-great-grandmother's names. I should have been happy. Relieved. This is what I wanted, right? For her to value her heritage, to understand her roots, to carry the legacy forward. But instead, I felt angry all over again. Because where was this Clara when I needed her? Where was this respect, this curiosity, this appreciation when I was working myself to the bone to give her opportunities? When I was bleeding from my fingers to pay for her education? When I was walking around in the same 3 dresses for years so she could have new clothes for school? I wanted to scream at her, you don't suddenly care now. You don't get to discover your roots after you publicly denounced them. You don't get to want the Bible now that you know the name is worth money. But I didn't scream. I took a deep breath, counted to 10 like Jonathan taught me to do when anger threatened to overwhelm me, and I said, let me think about it. She looked hurt. Good. Maybe she should be hurt. Maybe she should understand that forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, that rebuilding trust takes time, that some things, once broken, can never be exactly the same again. Okay, she said quietly. I understand. I want to do better, Mom. I want to be better. And I thought having the Bible, reading those names, remembering those stories you used to tell me, I thought it might help. And there it was again. That tiny flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this was real. That my daughter was genuinely trying to become someone I could be proud of again. I'll think about it, I repeated. But Clara? You need to understand something. That Bible, those names, those stories, they were always available to you. I was always ready to share them, to talk about them, to pass them on. You're the one who stopped asking. You're the one who decided they weren't important. So if you want them now, you need to prove to me that you actually value them. Not because they're attached to money, not because you feel guilty, but because you genuinely understand what they represent. She nodded, tears streaming down her face again. This girl cries so easily now. The old Clara, the polished Manhattan Clara, never cried. Kept everything locked down tight, under control. Maybe that's progress. Maybe vulnerability is the first step toward authenticity. Or maybe I'm just fooling myself. Maybe she's manipulating me with tears and apologies and volunteer work. Maybe none of this is real, and I'm the fool for wanting to believe it is. God, I'm tired. Tired of second-guessing everything. Tired of analyzing every interaction for hidden motives. Tired of protecting myself from being hurt again by the person who should never have hurt me in the first place. Jonathan used to say, "Evelyn, love, you think too much. Sometimes you just have to feel and trust." But Jonathan never had his heart broken by his child. Never had to wonder if the person he loved most in the world was ashamed of him. Never had to sit at a table full of strangers and smile while his entire life was dismissed as something small and embarrassing. So forgive me if I can't just feel and trust anymore. Forgive me if I need more than tears and promises before I hand over family heirlooms and open my heart completely. Forgive me if I'm protecting myself because nobody else will. The Foundation's second annual gala is coming up next month. Clara asked if she could give a speech. Talk about what she's learned, how the Foundation changed her perspective, why supporting working women matters. Part of me thinks it's a good idea. It would be powerful, the wealthy young woman admitting her mistakes, talking about what real value looks like. It could inspire donations, could bring in new supporters, could help the Foundation reach more women. But part of me recoils at the idea. Because is it her story to tell? Did she earn the right to stand on that stage and talk about struggle and dignity and the value of hard work? She's volunteered for 6 months. 6 months. I lived this life for 68 years. I learned every word I spoke about it. And I don't want her turning our pain into her redemption story. Don't want her using what she did to me as a way to seem deep and thoughtful and evolved. Look at me, I learned and grew and became a better person. Great. Wonderful. Want a medal? I'm being unfair. I know I'm being unfair. People are allowed to change, to grow, to learn from their mistakes. That's what I wanted, isn't it? For Clara to understand, to appreciate, to value what she'd dismissed. But I wanted her to do it without it taking $20 million. I wanted her to do it because she loved me, not because she was shocked into awareness by an inheritance. I wanted her to wake up one day and realize that her mother's love and sacrifice mattered, not to have to be publicly humiliated into understanding. Is that too much to ask? Is that unreasonable? Maybe it is. Maybe I'm holding her to an impossible standard. Maybe I need to accept that people learn the way they learn, in their own time, through their own experiences. Maybe the path to understanding doesn't matter as much as the arrival. But God, it matters to me. It matters so much. I've been seeing a therapist myself. Started about 3 months ago, after I realized I was having panic attacks every time my phone rang with Clara's number. Dr. Morrison is kind, patient, and doesn't let me hide behind my stoic exterior. You're allowed to be angry, she told me in our last session. You're allowed to take as much time as you need to heal. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a process, and there's no timeline. But I want to forgive her, I said. I want us to be okay again. Why? Dr. Morrison asked. Is it because you genuinely feel ready to move past this, or because you think you should? Because society tells you mothers are supposed to forgive their children no matter what. I couldn't answer. Because I didn't know. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe I'm just tired of carrying this weight and want permission to set it down, even if I'm not really ready. What would forgiveness look like for you? Dr. Morrison pressed. What would Clara need to do, or be, or say, for you to feel like you could truly let this go? And I realized I didn't know that either. Because nothing she does can erase what happened. Nothing can give me back that moment at her wedding, rewrite her toast, make those 250 people unhear what they heard. Nothing can return the year I spent feeling worthless and small and ashamed of my own life. So what do I want? What would be enough? Maybe there is not enough. Maybe that's what I'm struggling with. Maybe some hurts are too deep to ever fully heal, and the best you can do is learn to live with the scar tissue. I look at Clara now, so earnest and apologetic and trying so hard, and sometimes I feel tenderness. Sometimes I feel pride that she's learning and growing. Sometimes I feel hope that we might actually make it through this. And sometimes I feel nothing but rage. Blinding, consuming rage that she had the audacity to hurt me like this. That she valued strangers' opinions over her own mother's heart. That she was willing to publicly mock everything I am for a few laughs and some approval from people who don't really care about her. How do I reconcile these feelings? How do I be both the forgiving mother and the wounded woman? How do I give her grace while still honoring my own pain? I don't have answers. Just questions that circle through my mind late at night when I can't sleep. Questions I brought to Dr. Morrison, to my journal, to Jonathan's grave, to God, in prayers that feel like they bounce off the ceiling and fall back down unanswered. But life goes on anyway. The foundation grows. Women are helped. Clara volunteers. We have coffee. I work at Sullivan's. The seasons change. Spring becomes summer, becomes fall, becomes winter, becomes spring again. And slowly, so slowly I almost don't notice, the sharp edges of my anger begin to dull. Not disappear, I don't think they'll ever fully disappear. But dull. Become something I can touch without bleeding. Maybe that's the best I can hope for. Maybe that's what healing looks like in real life, as opposed to movies and fairy tales. Not a miraculous transformation, not a perfect resolution, just a gradual lessening of pain. Just learning to carry the weight with a little more ease. Just building a new relationship on top of the ruins of the old one and hoping it holds. I gave Clara the Bible last week. Put it in a nice wooden box, wrapped it carefully, and handed it to her over coffee at the little cafe near the foundation office. She opened it with shaking hands, ran her fingers over the engraved name, and opened it to the family tree. Saw her own name there, in my handwriting, added when she was born. Saw the wedding invitation I'd pressed between the pages. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face yet again. Mom. Don't thank me, I said quietly. This was always meant to be yours. It belongs to you, regardless of what name you use now. But Clara, understand, this is a gift, but also a responsibility. Those names, those women, the values they represented, you carry them forward now. Not just by keeping the Bible safe, but by living in a way that honors them. I will, she promised. I swear to you, I will. I nodded. Sipped my coffee. Looked out the window at the street, at ordinary people living ordinary lives, working jobs, and raising kids and trying to make ends meet. People like I used to be. People the foundation serves. I hope so, I said finally. I really hope so. Because that's all I have left, hope. Hope that my daughter has truly changed. Hope that our relationship can survive this. Hope that the Bennett name, the legacy, the values will continue beyond me. Hope that when I die, whenever that is, I'll leave behind something that matters. The foundation will continue without me. I've set it up carefully, with trustees and endowments and systems that don't depend on any one person. That's my concrete legacy, my proof that the Bennett name stood for something real and lasting. But Clara, she's my uncertain legacy. My variable. The one piece I can't control or guarantee or predict. She might live these values for the rest of her life. Or she might backslide the moment things get comfortable again. She might raise children who understand dignity and hard work, or she might raise children who learn the same shallow values she learned from Andrew's family. I don't know. I can't know. And I hate not knowing. But I gave her the Bible anyway. Because maybe that's what love is, giving people the tools they need to succeed or fail, and hoping desperately for success while accepting you can't control the outcome. Jonathan would understand. Jonathan, who believed in people even when they disappointed him. Who gave second chances, third chances, infinite chances. Who loved me through all my flaws and doubts and fears. I'm doing my best, love, I whisper sometimes, to his photo on my nightstand. I'm trying to be the woman you believed I could be. Strong but not hard. Forgiving but not foolish. Dignified but not distant. I don't know if I'm succeeding. Most days I feel like I'm failing at all of it. Like I'm either too harsh or too soft, too forgiving or too rigid, too open or too closed. But I keep trying. Because that's what the Bennett women do. We keep trying, keep working, keep pushing forward even when we're tired and hurt and not sure we can take another step. And maybe that's enough. Maybe trying is enough. Maybe the story doesn't need a perfect ending, just an honest one. So here's my honest ending: I love my daughter. I'm hurt by my daughter. I'm proud of who she's becoming. I'm angry about who she was. I've forgiven her and I haven't forgiven her. We're rebuilding and we're broken, and somehow both things are true at once. The Bennett name lives on, in the foundation, in Clara's heart, in the Bible she now holds. Whether that's a happy ending or just an ending, I don't know yet. But it's mine. It's ours. It's the truth. And after everything, after all the pain and anger and hurt and hope, the truth is all I have left to give. So if this story touched you, if it made you think about the people who raised you, the names you carry, the legacies you're building, then maybe it was worth telling. Maybe my pain means something. Maybe Clara's mistakes and my struggle and our slow, imperfect reconciliation can help someone else navigate their own family wounds. Or maybe not. Maybe this is just my story, specific and personal and not particularly meaningful to anyone else. But it's mine. The Bennett name is mine. The hurt is mine. The hope is mine. And I'm learning, slowly, painfully, imperfectly, to be okay with that. Evelyn Bennett. 68 years old. Seamstress. Widow. Mother. Foundation founder. Woman who learned her own worth too late and too hard. That's who I am. That's what my name means now. And you know what? It's enough. Finally, after all this time, after all this pain, I am enough. The name is enough. And that realization, more than any inheritance or foundation or tearful reconciliation, is what really sets me free. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what part moved you most. Stories like this remind us that sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest strengths, and that love really can conquer all. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. I love hearing from our amazing community around the world.